How we doing today? I know in some areas it is definitely a lot chillier than it has been the last few days, which I'm very happy about personally. But thank you for being here today. Um, like Devin said, my name is Nicole Vandiford. I'm the Director of Library Services at Lenoir Community College in Kinston, North Carolina. We are on the eastern part of the state. And last year, before I was promoted, when I was still just the instruction and technology librarian, I approached our director at the time and asked if we could do an update to the library website. Um, but before I go fully into everything, I would love if everyone could scan the QR code on the screen with their phone or go to menti.com and type in the code. And once you're there, if you could click the like button so I can make sure that you're actually getting in. Awesome, thank you. Because we're going to do a few interactive questions before we really get into it, just to get a general idea of everyone's thoughts and opinions on LibGuides and library web usage and different things like that. So I'm just going to take a minute and let people get onto that. And you're welcome if you have like a second screen, you can just do it on your computer by going to menti.com, or you can do it on your phone. It's a versatile program. You have the option. Right. Let's see here. It looks like we have a few people who still haven't gotten on it, but the instructions will maintain to be at the top of the screen. So you can also always get to it at any time throughout this. But I'm going to go to the next slide right now so we can start with our first question. And the first question, do you use LibGuides for your library website? That includes if you use it for just research guides or as the homepage in any capacity. So if you don't use it or if you do use it at all. Right. So hopefully we're having a growing number of people say yes, they use it to some capacity. Maybe a couple of people saying that they don't use it. Let's see here. All right, I expected a few people probably to not use it, and that's also one reason why I thought this presentation would be useful. So I am happy that we do have some people that have never experienced LibGuides and things like that, so I can introduce it to you. We are going to move on to the next question, which is on a scale of 1 to 5, how important is the library's website in outreach and engagement, in your opinion? 1 being not important at all, and 5 being absolutely vital. All right, so we have a couple people saying that it is vital. Some people saying like it's important. Give that 1 more minute. Okay, so we have a lot of people saying that it is definitely vital, and some people still saying that it's important. So in general, our scale is leaning towards it's important. All right, thank you very much. We're going to head to the next question. Have you ever been interested in web development? So either yes, I'm very interested in web development, or I just want to know what I need to know, and that's it. Or it's just not really my style. Maybe we can see if someone else can do this, but it's not really for me personally. Okay. Right. I definitely in the beginning was that person in the middle where it was, I just want to know what I need to know and then move forward. But once you're exposed to it, sometimes it can become very interesting. And I personally am very interested. So thank you guys for that feedback. And then the last question, what has stopped you from updating your library's website? Is it just not enough time? There's not enough staff, or there's no staff with that skill set at the moment? Logistics, any reason is welcome. So since this one is to actually input responses, we'll give a little bit more time for people to input. Focusing on other immediate problems. That's definitely a big factor, right? Because updating your website is definitely a long-term project. It takes a lot of time, and when more immediate things pop up, it can be really difficult. Yep, logistics, no time, no staff. Yeah, no, definitely those things can be a big factor. Let's see. Ooh, lack of routine UX assessment schedule. I like that one. Yeah, that one's big. If you don't know your user experience or just like how to do that type of assessment, that can be really difficult. Restrictions from the website platform. That is a huge one, right? We used to use a different platform before we actually used LibGuides for our main site. So we'll talk about that a little bit too. We just submitted changes as the college is overhauling. That is really exciting because like that is a great time to do those updates to your website because everyone will be doing them. So it's a really good time to do it actually. We've made changes but are limited by the college website. Yeah, I've noticed that a lot of institutions that say that they use their like that their website as part of the college's site can have a lot of restrictions. And I will be talking about that in depth during the presentation as it is something that we experienced as well. Thank you guys so much for your feedback. So we are going to properly get into the presentation now on improving library services and web presence using Project Outcome through the LibGuides platform. So this is just a general overview of what we'll be going over. So an introduction of what we experienced here at Lenoir, which led to us going forward with the project for the website update, making like a mock-up, what's also sometimes called a wireframe for library websites, um, understanding LibGuides and how to learn and understand basic HTML and CSS, which are web languages, and then understanding what project outcome is, interpreting the data from project outcome, and how to make it all work together. So, of course, most things start with a problem, right? Or an obstacle. Our problem was that our site was incredibly outdated. This is just a little bit of a screenshot of what our site looked like back in 2021. So you had the one search bar at the top. You had your databases and your research guides just like linked right below it. We had information on when we were in the process of moving to Evergreen at that time. So actually the screenshots from just a year ago, actually, now that I think about it. So this wasn't even a year ago is what our site looked like. So we had the library catalog there. We had our chat service, and then we had room bookings, which was a widget in WordPress because our college used WordPress. And this was a page on the actual college's website. And any changes had to go through the college's web developer and be approved by marketing. So the site was very basic. It didn't provide a lot of information. Students had navigation issues because what's not shown here in the very top right corner of the web page was an Explore More that had a drop down of like where everything on the site was. And students never saw the Explore More button. It was a very tiny font. It wasn't very friendly on like a mobile device, and things like that. And one obstacle we had is we could not run our own statistics. We could not track what pages were being read, what our standard like monthly statistic was, and things like that. We always had to request that through a web developer, which just stagnated the process. So what I presented was fulfilling a few objectives. One, I proposed designing a new layout for the library. And at this time, we were under the impression of always having the website be a part of the college website. And so that's how I did it. The second objective was to gather data from our information literacy and library instruction sessions. We used the surveys and project outcome, and we used this for direction when it came to usability and things like that. And then alongside that, since we were in the process of migrating to Evergreen at the time, we were also launching a new ILS and a new OPAC. So we were also designing that as well. So we were making sure that everything looked cohesive and also followed along with our college's style guide. So if your college has a style guide and things have to be like certain colors, certain fonts, I'd recommend checking with your marketing department and seeing if your college does have a style guide to follow. So one thing that we started with was inspiration, right? Gathering data. So we started to look around, and we already knew we wanted to change the site, but we started thinking about basic design choices, what other libraries did, things like that. And we also needed to figure out how we wanted the site to be updated, right? Do we want to keep it on the college site and work with the college's web developer? They were very open to designing a new site with us, developing it. They told us most things always get approved. They'll be able to do anything we need, right? So collaboration was there. It was good. Um, or did we want to try and see if we could get approval to separate and move solely to LibGuides? So these were all questions. And then also, do we want to use NC Live's website service? If you guys didn't know, NC Live has a great website service where they can actually do a lot of the style modification for you. It's a one-time fee of $300, and they do help you in perpetuity with that. I did work at an institution where we used that, and it was fantastic. So we also were considering that as well. So then I just looked at a ton of library websites. I went across the country and just looked at a ton of places. So one that I really liked was Gleason Libraries, which I believe this was the University of San Francisco. Um, if I remember correctly. I liked their font choices, how they chose to make some words like bold and all capitals and others not to kind of like move your eyes in certain directions. If you go to the site, when you hover over certain items, it has transitions and stuff like that. So that was nice. I liked their site and it was very structured. This is the page they use for like a landing page for their research guides, and I really liked that. That it kind of had like a research basics. It had class guides. It had community engagement. I liked those pieces together. And then, of course, we did look at NC Live's site because its structure is very solid. It has the nice hero image at the top. It has the what we call a one search bar, and it has some standard navigation below and things like that. It's easily structured. We did look at Seneca Polytech as well. I believe this was in upstate New York. We liked that it had a little more like visual graphic behind the one search bar and things like that. We liked the structure of how they chose to like list their services and things like that. Because it's not always about visuals, right? It can also be just like how are things laid out page by page and standard navigation. And then one thing I found along the way was a fantastic resource in the Spring Share Lounge. Now, if you are an institution that does not use LibGuides at all, I think most institutions do have an actual like LibGuides account or a SpringShare slash LibApps account. And then we do have the option for LibGuides, LibCal. You can pay for LibWizard and different options. As long as you have an account in LibApps, you have a SpringShare Lounge account. And this is basically like a Reddit of people across the entire world who use SpringShare products and giving feedback, giving recommendations, and different things like that. So there was a whole discussion thread just on libraries that use LibGuides as their website. So I scrolled it for a long time because this came out like right as the time as we were starting to develop this project. And I just looked at all the libraries. A lot of us would communicate with each other. We'd ask for each other's code. Like I gave my code to people, people gave their code to me, so we can then test it out, see how it worked, and things like that. So it's a fantastic resource. People in there are extremely responsive, um, and we really try and help each other out. So it's a great resource if you have not used it yet, and it's not just for LibGuides. It's for every single type of product that SpringShare has to offer. So you can find a lot of great information here. And then when we're looking at these designs, we're like, okay, we have to start now thinking of what we want our site to look like, right? What that layout's going to look like. So I had to decide how I wanted to present that to my director and to marketing. So of course, the first thing I did is I would just like draw things on sheets of paper, right? That's where a lot of us start. Is we're just drawing boxes on sheets of paper as to where things could go. And there's different types of wireframes that you can do. A wireframe is just a fancy word for a mock-up. I know a lot of us probably know the term mock-up a little bit more. But the picture that you see on the side is an example of what's called a low fidelity wireframe. And that's just where you have the boxes and like where things would go on the page. So like this square is a button. Like these lines mean that words would be here. Like something with an X through it means it's a picture. So that way you can kind of present that to your director or stakeholders even to just give them a structure of what it will look like. And then you can do something called a high fidelity wireframe, so where it literally is just a recreation of what it would look like in real time. So there's different platforms you can use to make that. Um, you have the option for Canva, which if you guys didn't know, as educators, you can get Canva for free. Um, you can just, if you have an early college, high school, it makes it a lot easier. But you do have that option, and it's a great resource. I use it on the regular. There's also Figma, which is the most popular software for creating wireframes, especially high fidelity wireframes. Um, I'm still learning Figma, so I was like, I don't know if I want to use that one. And then there's a resource called Genially, which has a lot of templates available. You can make websites, you can make microsites, you can make instructional material that can embed in your MLS, LMS, like Moodle or Blackboard, and it's very interactive. So I had used that one for things in the past, so I knew I liked that one. But I decided I didn't want anything that was something that you had to click on. It was just visual, so I chose to use Canva. And then from there, I made a ton of versions. I made so many versions of just like what were we looking at that we liked, right? So what we first did is we did like everything and then we trimmed down each time because brevity is the soul of wit. So less is more. So we started trimming things down and we kept trimming down more. One of these is a little Easter egg to ECU libraries. I recreated it for fun. And just like seeing what that looked like. And then I kept going and trimming more and more, right? And we were going through and seeing what worked and things like that. So when we had a visual mock-up of what looked good, I then created an interactive one in LibGuides, simply just as an example. It was just to show to our marketing department as to what we want it to look like. It was never intended to be the actual site. It just ended up that way. But that is an option you can do if your department's, like your marketing department or your administration, is open to you detaching from the main college website. And then at the same time, we were developing a new OPAC. So this was a rough mock-up of what we were designing for our OPAC for Evergreen. So we wanted it to kind of align with what we were going with, and stuff like that. It doesn't look exactly like this, because it was just like a fake mock-up in Canva. You can go to our website and see the actual one if you want to. But it looks very similar. And I, again, just chose random books to put as the example. But if you haven't read Bunny, highly recommend. Um, so we want to just make sure everything aligned with that. But then there was the hard part. You do have to do a little bit of coding. Now, I know a lot of us probably took like a computer science class in high school and like did some very basic HTML of just how to be able to scroll a page with the background staying where it was and different things like that. I did not come from a computer science background. I did not come from a web development background. I worked with a few sites when I was in college for work, but I had never done actual like high code projects. It was either low code or no code. So like WordPress or like Adobe Muse, which doesn't even exist anymore. Um, and just like different things like that. With LibGuides, while you can do a lot with no code and low code, to be able to really optimize it to the best you can, it is very helpful to know just basic code structure and where to find information. Because a lot of it, originally, I did not build from scratch. I found templates and then just modified those. So that's something that's really helpful. Also, when we were starting this, I didn't use like AI. And now I'm like, ChatGPT saves lives. Because it can help you just like generate a template that you then modify and things like that. So there's resources available. In general, there's two levels to LibGuides. There's the basic level, which we all have access to, and then there's CMS, which is an advanced option that you can pay extra for. It's up to you if you want to use CMS or not. I do not use LibGuide CMS. Would I like to? Yeah, I've used it before. It's a really convenient, like advanced customization option that just streamlines things a little bit, but it's not required. So you can do high code modifications without having CMS. Um, there's also something called frameworks. So SpringShare uses something called Bootstrap to make the site what's called responsive. And when a site is responsive, it means that it'll adapt its sizing to every type of screen size. So desktop, tablet, cell phone. So it will respond to it. They're in the process of migrating from Bootstrap 3 to Bootstrap 5. So you do have to kind of in some spots have one framework and spots in another. So that can be a little stressful at first, but SpringShare has tradings available that I'll get to in a little bit. It is also helpful to know basic HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. I will say I primarily did HTML and CSS. I didn't use too much JavaScript for my coding because I'm still learning JavaScript. It was actually really hard for me to learn JavaScript because it's very different from HTML and CSS. And I'm only now starting to understand it because I actually took a class on Java, which is a completely different programming language, by the way. They are not the same thing, even though they sound similar, but the structure's kind of similar. And that helped me get better at learning JavaScript. And then, of course, JavaScript also has its own frameworks like Angular and Vue and React. And that's where I start to freak out a little bit, but because I'm still learning those as well. I'm learning along with you guys just as you are. And then, like I said, responsive sites, right? And if you know the majority of your clientele uses phones at home, like if they don't have computers at home, that's something to take into consideration, right? You want to make sure it's mobile friendly. And I knew that a lot of our students did not have computers at home. So I also wanted to make sure it was mobile friendly and how to design around that as well. These are the resources that I used when it came to learning HTML and CSS, but they have so many more languages available, right? W3 Schools has, I mean, every language under the sun, just about. I mean, every single one. Free Code Camp is really convenient and helpful. Code Academy, I like a lot, or Code Academy, I like a lot because it's interactive. Like you do stuff like to learn. Like it's very like hands-on. And then edX also has a few classes available for free that you can do. So these are all resources that I used, and they were incredibly helpful. I mean, there were days where I had the tabs up like at all times, like every day. I was always on these sites and like learning new things. And also W3 Schools does have templates as well. So that was really helpful. And then of course, SpringShare training. SpringShare has a ton of online training recordings, and you can filter by product. So if you're only doing LibGuides, you can filter that, and you can see so many trainings when it comes to advancing the website side of like a LibGuide and like making it a website and not just a research guide or something like that. How to do that also for like LibCal, how to do that for A to Z databases, right? They have so many pages available, and they also have resources in English and in Spanish. So I really like that because one of our staff workers, while they're bilingual, they prefer things in Spanish. So I can be like, we got you. We got resources in Spanish as well. So they do have that as well. And they have so many templates. This is where I got the majority of the templates that I used was through these recordings. They have a spot right in the bottom where it's like folders of templates. So SpringShare trainings was the MVP when I was doing this. So I highly recommend looking at their resources. They do live sessions and they do recordings. So you can always watch live or you can go back. One thing I highly recommend when it comes to practicing code at all, never do it in LibGuides because the amount of times I accidentally made the screen just completely turn green is beyond me. Um, Use something called an integrated development environment or an IDE. There's a lot out there that's available. I think the majority of people are probably going to use either Visual Studio Code, which is provided by Microsoft. So a lot of us are Microsoft schools. So you can download it on your computer without having to get IT permission. Like it doesn't require the pop-up for them to type in the admin password because it's a Microsoft product. So you can just immediately open it up and start going. One that's also really popular if you guys are like Adobe schools, Adobe Dreamweaver is also very similar. So those are two options. With Visual Studio Code, there is an extension to do a live view of what you're coding. So you can see like what it would look like on a website. So that's what I used because it was free for us and I could just add the extension to see a live view of what my code looked like. So that way I didn't have to put it into LibGuides and I didn't accidentally break the site for the 11th time because it'll happen. It's a rite of passage. You're going to break something at least one time and you're going to get to know SpringShare very well because they can fix anything. So it'll happen. It's okay. We all get through it. If you have like a Mac, I would probably say Eclipse would be better. I mean, you can use any of them, but I know that a lot of people with Mac prefer Eclipse. So that's an option. And then there's also AWS Cloud 9. I haven't used it personally, but it does have a lot of languages available in it. So some people like to use that one as well. And then there's the back end of LibGuides. This is what our back end looks like. It's nothing crazy. Um, we have, just the LibGuides dashboard. So you'll have, a lot of LibGuides information usually on the left-hand side, like upcoming webinars, if there's events, things like that, training calendars in there. You can look at your content, you can look at tools, and you can look at your statistics straight from this page. Let's see here. You can do customization in admin. You do have to have admin level access in SpringShare. So when you first sign in, it's in the LibApps side. So you have to see, are you an admin for LibGuides? Are you an admin for LibCal? Like you have to see that and make sure you have those admin access levels to be able to do full customization. Um, it's in under admin in look and feel. You'll know if you're not an admin because the admin spot will not be there. So if it's not there, then you go into the LibApp side, go to your account, and make yourself an admin level for those other platforms. Um, so you see there's two look and feel sections, and that's because they're in beta for Bootstrap 5. So that look and feel section currently only applies to databases A to Z, the updated version. Um, Everything for LibGuides and LibCal is still on Bootstrap 3. So you will see two look and feels where one is beta is going to be the databases A to Z. So what you can do is input your code where it says custom JS/CSS, so that's JavaScript or CSS, to modify the style of objects. That's just like if you want to change the entire site's font, or if you want to add colors to things, like so that it applies to everything. If you want things to be on individual pages, you'll have to have CMS, LibGuide CMS. This applies to everything. So that is something to know. So if you wanted like a page to look completely different style-wise, that it almost didn't even look like it was a part of your institution, it'd be best to have LibGuide CMS, just so you know. You also from here can modify your header, your footer, your tabs and boxes, your page layout. Like there's a lot you can modify that I don't even touch personally. They have trainings for it in SpringShare training. I recommend. Yes, Lucy, you do have to pay extra for LibGuide CMS. It is based on your FTE, I'm pretty sure. Last I checked, when it came to a quote that I was looking at, I think it was that we get a discount because we're a part of NC State Libraries is the connection that we have with getting LibGuides. So we do get a discount. If I remember correctly, it was like $1,100 for the school year or something like that. So it really just depends on what you have available, like budget wise. So that is something to consider. Let me see here. Um, yes, you get LibGuides through the state library. Yes. Thank you, Devin. LibCal, Jennifer, the base is free. It comes with, I believe, 3 rooms. If you need more than that, there is an extra fee. We have 6 study rooms, so we pay for 6 rooms. And with the discount, I believe it's 588 or 688, something like that for the whole school year. So in grand scheme, not horrible prices, but you do have to budget a little bit depending on what you're given. So those are things to keep into consideration. The business office there and customer service is fantastic in my personal opinion. So they do try and work with you as well. Let's see here. Uh, and then there's project outcome, right? We're like, hold on, we forgot that that was a part of this, right? We're talking about LibGuides so much, right? When I was going through and designing the website, I started to think I didn't have enough input from the actual people that were going to be using it, right? The students. And of course, faculty and staff, but primarily the students, right? And I was like, I need more input from them since they're going to be the primary people using it. So what I did is after every instruction session, I would sprinkle in a little bit of new site stuff. And then when I did it in the surveys, I'd give them a spot to ask, what do you want on the website, on this new website, and things like that. And one, Project Outcome is free. All right, is a free resource. They have a public library association side and a ACRL side. So make sure that you're using your respective angle for that. When signing up, they have the option for different types of surveys. This is what the back end looks like. It's a free toolkit where you can basically just like get a lot of great feedback and survey data. Um, you can create surveys, you can copy surveys. I keep a template that I just like make a copy of every time I'm like doing a class. So you'll see that like I have like library research for ACA 122, for English 002. I put the times and dates if I have multiple ones going on throughout the day. You can put some back end notes. So if like you're like this class, like feedback for this, who the instructor is, things like that. There's a spot where you can put how many people were in attendance. So that way, based off of how many people respond, you have a percentage of how many people actually did the survey. You have the option to send the survey out as either just like a link, you can embed it, and different things like that. So let me show you here. So with project outcome surveys, they're measuring 4 key outcomes. They're measuring the knowledge, they're measuring the confidence the student has, their application, and their awareness of resources. So those are its 4 baselines. And what you can do is you go in and you create a survey and you choose the survey topic that you want. So there's digital and special collections, events and programs, instruction, library technology, research, space, and teaching support. And then you can do the type of survey, so immediate or follow-up. The one I like the best is instruction survey topic with immediate. Now, you don't have to do that. That's just the one that I like to use. But if you want to try that out as like a template just to see how it works, so that way you don't have to like go around and guess. That is what I use. And then I choose the option to add questions to the standardized survey because it has standard questions that it asks always, but there are a few extra ones that I wanted to do. Now, these are not fully custom, right? You can't actually type in the question that you want. They have a huge list of open-ended questions you can choose from, and you can choose up to 3. So a lot of the times I'll do like on average, how often do you visit the library? How do you most often use the library? And I think I added a spot that was like, is there anything you think we can improve on? Or is there anything extra that you want? And when I'm in the survey, when I'm actually in the class, I say for that last question, talk about what you want on the website. Because like there wasn't an option where I could actually write, like, what do you want on a website? So in the class, I'd just be like, that's the question to talk about if you want things done on the website. So that way they knew. And then I'd give that to the instructor. I'd usually wait a couple of days. Don't be surprised if no one does the survey, because usually if the instructor doesn't make it a participation grade, they're not going to do it. I have a lot of surveys that have 0 responses. It happens. I recommend having time at the end of like a session to like put the QR code on the screen and make them do it at the end of the class. And they can't leave until they're done with it. That's just so it's very fresh and you're going to get your responses. If that can't happen, it can't happen. But I recommend making them actually do it at the end of the class. Um, you'll see like from right here, let me go back a few slides. Oop. You can do quick report on each of them, and that's what this is. So it starts with a preview. You want to make sure you select add or export open-ended responses. All right. It'll show a pop-up of all of them, and you'll put add all to report. And then from there, you have the preview that you can scroll through, and then you can print it. So from here, you'll see it'll give you like ranges of what the student gave feedback on. So we can see here, 85% of the respondents said that they strongly agree, like that they've built the knowledge, right? So we can see 100% learned something new, 89% felt more confident, right? Because we can see 11% was like, I feel neither confident nor unconfident. And some people were like, I agree, and some were like, I strongly agree. Sometimes you'll have a huge like color variation depending on the class, what the subject is, and things like that. Because if we're doing an orientation, usually you're going to get a lot of the strongly agree. If it's like an in-depth like project analysis, like teaching students how to do research for a project, you may get more green and things like that. So always make sure you do add or export open-ended responses to your survey. And then from there, you can just like go through and like read what they say, right? You can be like, what are they saying here? I keep all of my surveys. I actually have them in this drawer right over here. Let me see. I have them all separated by the semester. So here's the semesters. So for example, here it is. And I can go through, and this was for a business 115 class where they were doing a SWOT analysis, I believe. And what I did is I asked, what else does the library do to help you succeed in your classes? And then I would like look at the answers, right? Some people are usually just like, they covered everything I need. But some people are like, I want to learn more about the resources online, right? I want to learn more about what's available online. Some people are like, I like how respectful that the librarians are. I like that they're just teaching us random things. I can see based off of like the basic questions, on average, how often do people visit the library? I can see that 33% of the class said that they never visited the library, right? So I know where I can start to target areas to be like, okay, well, we need to bring them in, right? Why are they doing that? Why are the ones that do come in? 67% said that it's just to use the computers. And I'm like, yeah, because we have free printing. So that'll be why. So like we can start to see and really analyze like what's going on and why people come into the library, why they don't, how we can try and get them in, and things like that. So we used a lot of the open-ended questions for expanding resources and services on the website. So for example, we did a nursing class last year, and a lot of them were like, I'd really like if we had like 2 to 3 minute video tutorials on like how to use the OneSearch or like how to go through and do this. And from there, we developed library crash courses. What is on our website? We have, I think, 12 or 15 videos at this point that are just like 2 to 3 minute videos on how to do different things in the library. What we did is with our LMS, we use Moodle. We pay for an option called Media Site, which is basically where we can put videos in that can be embedded into Moodle courses. So I have them all on a channel in Media Site that instructors can then put straight into their Moodle. But then I also link them all on our library website. So they are very easily accessible. So that's just one example of how we did that. So here we can see the difference, right? So we have the website from 2021. I had to use the Wayback Machine to get that. And then what our website looked like back in May. It's changed a little bit. We now have like a library events calendar on the homepage, but in general, it looks like this. So you can see we have a lot of content on the homepage because the students didn't like the navigation bar. They didn't like the explore more. So we tried to reserve resources and services for like a lot of basic stuff that they would need, but also have a lot of stuff on the homepage because they just preferred that from what we analyzed. Now, not every population is like that. That's just what our population likes. You really have to cater to your own clientele and your own student. Um, but we did do the like shadow box with the one search and the image behind it, and we like faded it a little bit because when it wasn't faded, the contrast just wasn't there. So sometimes that happens. We put some like little button information right below the one search that kind of goes along with it. So like we linked the catalog, we linked NC Live, we linked Dogwood Digital Library. We put the library hours right on the homepage because the amount of phone calls we got was insane just asking for the hours because it wasn't on the library website and you had to go to explore more and then go down to hours. So we just put it straight on the homepage. We put just a few of the crash courses on the homepage, not all of them, that would be crazy, but just a few just to like kind of showcase that we have these options available and just like other extra things. Because we have a virtual library tour. We had a lot of distance ed students that we couldn't cater to. So we did a virtual library tour for them. I used Genially to make that. I linked to the distance education department. I linked to the bookstore. And then I linked to our heritage place, which is our local history and genealogy collection. It's kind of separate, but still a part of the library. It has its own page on the actual college website. Um, and just like how we did that. I also linked our chat service right here. It's on every single page. Every page has the chat. It is a little bit faded, and when you hover over it, it becomes more opaque. And then when you click on it, it opens up the window for the chat service for library help. Oh, thanks, Michelle. Let's see. Maria, yes, the calendar is made with LibCal. Let me see here. Um, Elias says I coded a widget for our homepage that tells our population when we are closed based on our website calendar because of the same thing. Yep, that's a really good idea. Um, let's see, Lucy, how do you spell what you used for laboratory? Oh, yeah, let me type that in. It is kind of weird. It's like that. It's GENIAL.ly. Um, I think it's an Australian company. I discovered them last year with one of my other librarian friends, and we just really like it. It's a really great interactive tool. We made like an escape room with it one time. It was really fun. Um, but this is what our site looks like now. And let's see here. I want. So this is also an example of what some of the pages look like. So we have our research guides page. So I do have research basics and class guides separated. Maria, Genially has two different pricing options. There's a free and a premium. I've never had an issue using the free version ever. So there's that. Let's see here. You can, of course, make it any way that you want, really. As long as you know how the structure works for LibGuides, you can make anything you want. We made a page that's just student resources. So every student can just go to that page and learn what's available, like in a one-stop shop kind of place as well. And then we also made sure everything was mobile friendly. So what I recommend doing is in whatever browser that you use, um, like go to like, if you're like using Google Chrome, go to the Google Chrome store and download an emulator for like mobile devices. The one that I use is called, oh, what is it called? That's a really good question, actually. What's mine called? I just went to the Google store. Let me see if I can find it real quick. It's called Mobile Simulator. That's just what it's called. It's a very simple name. The image is like two phones next to each other of different sizes. Um, but what you can do is it will just like emulate the screen to look like whatever mobile device you pick from its list. So that way you can see how it looks and how it runs. One thing I have noticed when it comes to making things more mobile friendly with LibGuides, you have two navigation options with LibGuides. You have the side nav option and the top nav option. The top nav option is not as responsive for mobile devices as the side nav is. That's just something I've noticed along the way. The structure looks better with side nav on mobile, So we did make all of our research guides side nav. In general, I don't like the side nav because it's a little less creative. Like it's really just one column. You can make it two columns, but then you have to really go deep into the HTML, and I don't want to do that. Um, but on mobile, it's nice and structured. So that's why I did use that in place. Let's see here. And then this is an example of what the um, library crash courses page looks like. So it's just all of them listed, like embedded that they can be clicked on. And then this is also what the virtual library tours main page looks like. So you can kind of see what that looks like, and just like you just click on the tiles and it brings you an expanded view of that area and things like that. And then of course there's the most important thing, the stats, the statistics, right? So from spring of 2023, where yeah, Michelle, I know, where we didn't use LibGuides at all for stats for the website, of course, that's going to be like right here, because all it was the research guides, which weren't being advertised well. They weren't really talked about in classes. So like, I mean, it was like 300 views maybe. And then in fall, we're starting to really promote the research guides and really actually starting to add links into our library main page with our web developer, because we hadn't actually migrated to the whole site being libguides yet. Um, and we can see that already went to near 6,000. And then we did the full migration in, I think it was like January 2nd. So like it wasn't even a year ago, right? And then from January to May, it was just under 12,000 views, because it was now we had full control over stats. We had full control over the library website. We didn't have to wait for those stats from our web developer that weren't being like included in the LibGuide stats and like stuff like that. I think I checked our stats for this semester so far yesterday, and we're about to already pass 12,000. So like even just since August now, so like 2 months roughly, we're at what we were for the entire semester for spring. So like we already, thanks. So I already know that like things are progressing where we want them to go. And I'm constantly doing updates. I'm checking things. We're really trying to assess. I made our student workers go over the prototype of the page so many times. And one reason I did that was this. This right here is what saved my life. Okay. When I was trying to get everything like structured for the project phase, I was struggling a little bit because of timeline, right? Because it wasn't just the website, it was also the ILS, it was also the OPAC, right? Doing all this together was a little rough. So like I'm trying to go into like I use my Microsoft calendar for like everything. So I was putting a lot of stuff in my Microsoft calendar. And one day as I'm putting them through, one of our IT guys just walks by my desk and he's like, "What's this?" And I'm like, "Oh, I'm working on project planning for the website and the ILS and the OPAC." And he was like, "Oh, why don't you just use a Gantt chart?" And I was like, "What's a Gantt chart?" So then he was like, "Oh, this is what IT people use when they're doing project implementation." And I was like, "This is exactly what I needed." So what I did, and like you can have it be people instead of tasks and like different things if you want. There's templates in Canva. I described a template from Canva. You put your task and you put the like week time range that you want. I know, Michelle, it's mind blowing. So like I had all of that. So like you can see that I spent a lot of time just drafting the navigation bar because that was torture. Literally just doing a navigation bar was absolutely torture. So I needed it. Thank you, Maria. But like for a whole week and a half, I made my student workers just do user testing. Like I was like, click everything. What is off to you? Do you think a student's going to click here? Do you think they're going to completely glaze over this area? Like, think as a student, not as a worker here. Like, forget that you are a library employee and just think of this as a general student. And they really came back and they were like, no one's going to click this spot. No one's going to realize that this is something that can be clicked on. No one like, so I was like, yes, this is what I need. So user testing is very vital. I recommend in the long run, I wish I had done like a large user test with like a volunteer group. Like if I had used like the Student Government Association or like a club or something like that to like do blind user testing. that's probably what I would have changed in the long run. But this is how I survived. This is what got me through everything. Um, it was a lot. It was a 4-month process in the long run. Now, don't get me wrong. I had started that August prior, and this was up in January. I don't recommend doing that. Don't don't try to be that person that does a major project in the first 3 months you're working there, because apparently it makes you wind up being director. So, um, how many people worked in the project? Me. It was one. Um, so yeah, I did this all myself, which is a lot. I recommend having a team, very much so. I recommend having a group of people to do this. If your school has like an IT program, who's doing this now that you're director? It's me, Maria. Come on now. Yeah, I like web development a lot, Elias. I do. Um, it's become a little bit of a passion personally. Um, but I recommend having a team if you have a like an IT program at your school, see if you can do like work-based learning internships. So that way they get the college credit for it while you get to have them work for free. So like they can boost their HTML and CSS skills like while they're doing it. So like right now we're in the process of seeing if we can get a student to be a work-based learner through the IT program because they have a student that's been really good with HTML and CSS in their classes. So we're gonna see if they can do some part-time work here. Um, if you have any staff that are at all technologically savvy whatsoever, see if they'd be interested in it. I know for someone that like is not experienced in it at all, in my opinion, it's a really great skill to have because if you're one of the colleges migrating to Evergreen right now and you need to give Scott Angel like your design stuff, sometimes it doesn't look right. And if you know the code for it, it can really help. It can really help. And Scott Angel is an actual angel, by the way. Like he can do anything. So like if you're migrating to Evergreen right now with Mobius, you're gonna have a good time doing it. But just like knowing a little bit of basic HTML and CSS can really help. But that was everything that we did. And does anyone have any questions?
I have a question.
Yes, Rebecca, hi.
You said that the LibCal is free. How
Yes,
do we get
so
that? Because I have never seen that as an option on our LibGuide or LibApps account.